All right, everyone, welcome back into another props video. Gonna be touching on the top prop bets for PrizePicks and Underdog today. Gonna be touching on a various amount of sports, NBA, NHL, NFL, college football, and college basketball. We'll see if we are getting better prop bets than yesterday when I did the deep dive into NBA. Now, as always, I do like to do a quick recap from the previous slate, and we went 3 for 6. And on that day yesterday, you guys saw very much struggling to have any good prop bets. It was a very limited board, so honestly, going 50%, I'll take that. And you guys probably heard the hesitation in calling out these CSGO props. I'd really just toss those in there, and it was a different tool and whatnot. Not one on my page, but I was very much all right. We got to toss in a couple more. We'll see if this works. And I have noticed with that for the CSGO props like that, it's very good at calling out discrepancies. So a lot of the times when they hit, the lines are like having a big discrepancy, they all hit, or it'll be like this where they both don't hit. But all in all, I would kind of take that day. Now, really the annoying part, and I didn't really realize this when I had done yesterday's video, is that a lot of the prop bets that I gave locked before even the second taco came out. So I mentioned I'd probably be defaulting to a lot of college basketball props. That was a tool that I've added into 9to5sports.com to the PrizePicks and Underdog cheat sheets. And I'm glad I did add that in there because it meant that the second taco ended up being pretty profitable. I will call out this Ware prop was one in which his fantasy score was actually favored to get the under, and that he crushes over by like double. Okay. But all in all, the college basketball prop cheat sheet has been successful through 2 days. And so just real quickly as well, that NHL opening taco that we had for shots on goal was just kind of funny that it didn't get there. Like that was one of the best tacos we've probably had in quite some time, because they ended up having to bump his original line to 4 shots on goal, simply because at 3.5, the taco line was at 2.5. His original line at 3.5 was favored to get over by like 55%. So annoying that would miss. He ended up having 2 shots on goal that missed. It is what it is. That'll happen. But looking at today's slate and starting with the NBA, I mentioned yesterday that there were a lot of bets that I just hated because they did not correlate with what I was seeing on the slate. And would you know it, the prop bets that we're getting again today also are continuing that, and it's super frustrating. That's happened the last few days with NBA. It's just kind of a weird stretch where, and maybe I just have some weird biases right now at the early season of NBA and whatnot. I don't really know what's going on there. But we do see Jimmy Butler for over 1.5 turnovers is seemingly a very good prop bet that we have, going against Memphis, typically, a team that can get some turnovers. I don't hate that. We just really need Jimmy Butler to play more minutes and have just more usage. And I say that because they had like a weird 3-game stretch in there where it kind of seemed like, I don't know, Eric Spoelstra was doing some weird stuff. Tyler Hero has really been the player that's had the most usage. He's kind of been their best player thus far. So we need Jimmy Butler to step up kind of into that bigger role. And I do just want to take a quick peek at kind of the injury report stuff that we have right now. We are seeing got a lot of Charlotte players confirmed out, which should mean heavy minutes for the players that are projected to start. You guys know I like PJ Washington a decent amount by now. Looking at the Clippers, Mason Plumlee is confirmed out, so Zubac could be someone we're looking at. Devin Vassell is currently expected to sit, which means Branham is going to start. Looking at the Phoenix Suns, we don't know for sure on Bradley Beal, but we do know that Devin Booker is currently listed as out. We got 2 Chicago Bulls players expected back. Very much question marks for the Lakers in terms of their depth. Don't know what's going to occur there. We look at Detroit. Jalen Duren, currently a game time decision. We got Burks out. We got Jaden Ivey out, which Killian Hayes really dominated in the last game with those 2 players out, those 2 guards out, which to me was a little bit shocking. Like in terms of like DFS, a lot of people were expecting Marcus Sasser to get a lot more work. So we'll see what happens there. Chris Middleton is ruled out for this game. They're trying to limit his minutes. Jared Crowder is expected to start. That really shouldn't change much. Although when Chris Middleton's been on the court, he's been phenomenal. So they're going to need other players to step up. I kind of think that usage just kind of gets passed around to everyone. Looking at the Pelicans, yeah, they're kind of banged up as well. McCollum out, Zion Williamson out as well. So Brandon Ingram is someone that should, in theory, be a very good play. And then we also have Jordan Hawkins as seemingly a decent play there as well. Looking at Cleveland, nothing too much there. Looking at Thunder, nothing too much there. Looking at Miami, nothing too much there. For Memphis, though, okay, we got news that Xavier Tillman is out. We know that John Morant's not playing. Derrick Rose is still out as well. So with Derrick Rose out, we have actually seen Marcus Smart, Desmond Bane, and also Luke Kennard get a little bit more run there as well. Moving on into Toronto here. We do need to get news on Precious, because if he sits, I do think Jakob Poeltl is going to get his 28 or so minutes. Thus, he's a good value. Jamal Murray currently listed as out. That means Michael Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon, 2 players I really liked as a good prop bet for over fantasy score yet last night. Those are going to be two players I think we're looking at again. Looking at Portland, Scoot Henderson out, Simon's out, Robert Williams out. So that's going to mean that DeAndre Ayton is going to get more minutes. And guys, I think we could see Malcolm Brogdon continue to get a heavy minutes workload. I don't know what to do with Sharp. He was someone that I really liked for over fantasy score on the last slate simply because he struggled in the previous game. We could be looking at that. We do know that De'Aaron Fox is out. They've been struggling with De'Aaron Fox out, and if they struggle against Portland again, that's going to sound some alarms because that'd be very bad. So kind of just to recap, it's a 14-game slate. Let's go ahead and break down which prop bets I'll probably be looking at today. And I do want to start out with that Pelicans situation because Zion was the cover boy for the video yesterday, and that's because some of his props that we were getting were currently being undervalued. We also saw that with Brandon Ingram and also Jordan Hawkins. So thankfully we should have a pretty big edge there, and we are seeing that, luckily these two should now hit. These two are now basically being favored as tacos, okay? And I'll pull those up. Hawkins rebounds is now at 4. Okay, so not exactly a taco, but still a favorable bet there for him. Then we look at Brandon Ingram. His points really skyrocketed, so that one is basically a taco. So thankfully we have a pretty big edge there. But I do think it's worth noting kind of what to expect now with Zion and also CJ McCollum off the court. And guys, I don't want to spend too much time on this. I want this to be a quick video, but I do think that this is worthwhile. So we haven't seen this too much thus far this season. Very small sample size, but I think we can expect Matt Ryan and Dyson Daniels as well as Jordan Hawkins to all see a bump in their minute. That should be expected. Now, Jordan Hawkins does see a 12% bump in usage. He is someone that averages about 4 more points per 36 with those two off the court. Again, very small sample size that we have going into this, but he averages 2.1 more rebounds, so probably 6 rebounds, and then about 1 less assist. And I think that's due to him just shooting the basketball a lot more. He averages about 6.4 more field goal attempts with those two off the court, and it does make sense. Like, you need the usage from those two players to go elsewhere, so it does go to Hawkins and also a little bit of Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram averages about 8 more points, fantasy points per 36, averages only 0.7 more points, so that's a little bit alarming there. But again, for him, it's an extremely small sample size. We're not even getting 36 minutes. And so for Ingram, I think the best application would be looking at last season's data. Now, last year, he didn't really have someone like Hawkins soaking up this usage, and so it's tough to say for sure, but last year, he averages 4.8 more points per 36 with those two off the court, so let's say about 25 points is what, this would be. Maybe 6 rebounds total. It's like 0.1. And then 0.3 assists. So really, the biggest bump is going to be in his point. And I'm actually curious, what is his fantasy score prop now? Or are we not getting one? We're not getting one. Okay, so really, I don't really see a big edge here, guys. I don't know. I don't want to be going in on any of those too much. I think Jordan Hawkins is actually the one that we would want to go in on the most at 24.5 for points, rebounds, and assists. He should be able to get there. The issue that we have with him is that he is someone that's going to be very much shot dependent. Okay. He's someone that will get shot attempts. I think we can assume that. But, in the night against OKC, he shot the ball terribly. And, almost he probably would have got the over if he just makes a couple more baskets. That's the issue, especially with a young player like this. A lot of times when they cold shooting the basketball, they can't make differences in the game elsewhere. And so for the Pelicans, we're seeing a lot of that being echoed in the props that we have. Maybe Brandon Ingram I don't see that, guys. I don't know. Again, this is the frustrating part. J-Val, I do think we can expect him to get a little bit more run in this game. Let's see his minutes, because in the last game that Zion said, I think he got a little bit extra run. I think this was that game. And I want to take a peek at his projected minutes on Occupy Fan. Well, I can pull this up here on my site as well. Let's see here. 27 minutes. So yeah, if J-Val gets 27 minutes, guys, his rebounds at 10.5, honestly, probably too low. Again, when we see him get a lot of minutes, I think we can expect him to get the over there. And I'm actually curious now, what other props are we getting for him that might stand out? J-Val points, rebounds, and assists. How many assists is he averaging on the season? Yeah, I don't mind that. Probably a fantasy score guy, but we're not getting that. I mean, this is the slate though, guys. I mean, I mentioned this, all the good props that I think we are getting on the slate, the data is telling us about the under. Jordan Hawkins, J-Val rebounds, points, rebounds, and assists slightly there. Not bad. But yeah, that's the annoying part. And so again, these make for better individual bets on the sports books where, we're getting a 48% chance for the over to hit roughly just based off the average sportsbook line. Now, when we include other data, that gets to about a 51% likelihood for the under to hit. And so to me, given the fact that the payout would be better, that's a better bet. For the over, I'm on the sports books. But I don't want to spend too much time on any individual teams. I just want to highlight the best prop bets that we are currently getting. So we are seeing a Brandon Miller for under fantasy score. And this is one that I can get behind. Now, the projection data is showing that he's going to get over. I don't like that part of it, but Brandon Miller is someone that was expected to, get more minutes and whatnot. And I just don't know if he's that good of a basketball player just yet. And I want to preface that. He shot the ball 12 times, didn't really shoot the basketball well. And that's it. He's not doing much elsewhere, only averaging 1.7 assists on the season and 4.5 rebounds. And yes, it's a great matchup with Washington. You would assume he'd be able to get there. But at the same time, I just worry that if he is going to need to be involved in this game plan, and heck, with the starters, I don't see him getting that much usage. Like, it's going to be LaMelo Ball. It's going to be Gordon Hayward. It's going to be PJ Washington. And so to me, I think we can almost just stay away from Brandon Miller. And looking at this fantasy score prop, I would actually be fine betting the under at 27.5. I wish we were getting an underdog line, though, to compare this against to see what they're thinking. But yeah, all in all, I'm fine with that. We are seeing Horton Tucker for over steals at 0.5 is a good one. Horton Tucker is someone that's, been a little bit sporadic with that. And I will say that, like 2, 3, 0, 0, 0, it does depend on a little bit of the minutes, and he's just not getting that many minutes as a whole, but that's because these games have not been staying close. And so when we pull up the ODDSJAM kind of sportsbook view here, we'll see that game does have a slight blowout risk, but that is going to be a game that's going to be high scoring. And so thus, I just think there's a lot more opportunities for stuff like random steals to happen, rebounds and whatnot. That's one of the games that I want to be targeting, as well as this Washington-Charlotte game. And so that's where the Brandon Miller one, that's kind of the negative side of betting the under fantasy scores. That's probably the most appealing game on the slate to bet overs on. From there, we're seeing Walker Kessler now for the under fantasy score, which to me is just funny. Yesterday, when I had done this video, the over was being favored for him. I'm like, I don't think that's right. I think we need to wait for these lines to update. And so now that is one that's showing that maybe the under is the way to go there, which I would agree with, because I think John Collins is going to have a much better game. Cam Thomas for under fantasy score, that's very much shot dependent. You would imagine that he's probably due to have a bad game shooting the basketball sometime soon here, but he's just shooting so many shot attempts, like 33 in that game, basically averaging over 20 shot attempts. And so to me, when we're getting a guy like that, I don't know if I really want to be betting on it. Like, I don't want to bet on him having a poor night shooting. Now, you might argue going against the Clippers, they do have some players. Not really. They got James Harden there now. I kind of worry about them defensively, so not even worth mentioning. Another one, I said yesterday, I think Tobias Harris for over fantasy score is a good one. I still think that as well. And then Daniel Gafford. This one is extremely interesting. That's at 27.5. And I probably would agree with betting the under here, because it does seem to be a little bit too high. Now, it's a great matchup going against Charlotte. We love that. Again, that's a game that we want to be targeting. Like, we know that. But looking at it, guys, like, he is very much minutes dependent, okay? And he can get into foul trouble. And I'm not saying Mark Williams or PJ Washington are going to get him into foul trouble, but at the same time, it took him going 6 for 7, having his most shot attempts against Philly, which was a little bit shocking. And he got 30 minutes in that game as well. But it took 5 blocks for him to get there as well. Let's just do the math here. Go to his season average blocks, 2. And so that's take away 3 blocks. So 3 times 3 is 9 points. Take away 9 points from him yesterday, he doesn't get the over, or in the last game. So yeah, I'm kind of fine with betting the under there. That one feels pretty good. And for reference, he is someone that's been at like 21.5 or like 20 fantasy score for the past few slates. And so that is a big spike. Taurean Prince is going to get minutes, 0.5 steals. I'm kind of fine with that. Benedict Mathurin, 3.5 rebounds, whatever. Kyle Lowry under. Like, these are good EV bets. Like, I love the fact that we're getting good EV bets, and it's going to be a big slate. So we are going to be getting some very good EV bets. I want to see if we're getting any other good fantasy score props that I agree with. This one's super annoying for PJ Washington, and I actually want to pull it PJ Washington as a whole to see if we're getting any good props on him. Points prop is something I'm kind of interested in. Maybe points, rebounds, and assists at 25.5, but I think we still like the points one. Again, this would be a better prop bet on one of the sports books. Okay, I want to make that clear. But with Terry Rozier off the court, PJ Washington is someone that gets a big bump in usage. And so, yes, we do have Brandon Miller there. If he shoots the basketball well, he's a rookie and whatnot. Like, that could change the sample size that we're looking at. But PJ Washington has a 25% usage rate. Now, don't get me wrong, Gordon Hayward has a 28, and LaMelo Ball has a 32% usage rate with Terry Rozier off the court. PJ Washington, however, has the biggest bump at 8.4 for his usage. LaMelo Ball is about a 7% bump, and Gordon Hayward is about a 7% bump as well. But PJ Washington averages 4 more points per 36 with Terry Rozier off the court. Okay, so at his current average on the season, going against Washington as well, that's appealing, right? Add on 4 more points to that, he should crush this. And tack on the fact that's a good matchup, I like that as well. The one worry that we would have is that he isn't shooting the basketball well this season. He has only had one good game shooting the basketball, and he didn't really even like go off in that game as well. But all in all, like that is seemingly a very good prop bet. But again, I think it's a better individual bet on the sportsbook because we're not getting good EV on it. And this is such a big slate in which we should be getting good EV bet. Last season, for reference, guys, PJ Washington had the most minutes on the team with Terry Rozier off the court. And in that sample size last season, he did only average 18.5 points, which, albeit kind of whatever. On the tail end of the season last year, we saw him really step up and play a lot more minutes, but I think it's the matchup that should really elevate him as well. So again, though, better bet on one of the sports books. Now I do just want to take a peek at all the good fantasy score prop bets that we might be getting, and I'll be getting into some other sports here. And so I already mentioned a lot of these. Let's just see what other ones we got. Marcus Smart for over 27.5. He kind of got locked up by Malcolm Brogdon by all people. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I've been hyping up Malcolm Brogdon, but that was my worry with Marcus Smart. I mentioned those as kind of why he might not get there. That was a good matchup. But all in all, he's playing so many minutes that the line of 27.5 does seem to be a little bit too low for Smart. And he's someone that sure hasn't really been shooting the basketball too much or well. You expect him to get a couple more assists, maybe a couple more steals, and he should be fine. Does feel a little bit too thin there. Tyus Jones, I don't mind for over his fantasy score of 27.5. Again, that's kind of a game that we want to be attacking. I will say, the Cam Thomas one, I don't like for under his fantasy score, but I would say that does correlate pretty well with Mikal Bridges getting his over fantasy score. Like, he's going to have to step up if someone like Spencer or Cam Thomas does not get there. Zach Collins, I don't want to touch just as an FYI. I think he's a guy that can get done blocks and steals and whatnot. LaMelo Ball for his fantasy score at 49.5. A lot of people are probably seeing that and saying, wow, that is a high number. And they're correct. Now, last season, we didn't have a big, we kind of had a big sample size on it. Last season, he averaged 48.4 fantasy points per 36 with Terry Rozier off the court. But the thing to note with LaMelo Ball is at the start of the season, he was having his minutes limited. And then last game out, he played 39 minutes, and throughout the whole season, I'm like, what does it mean that they're limiting Ball's minutes? He's playing 33 minutes in some games. Like, that's not limiting anyone's minutes. And apparently, he's going to play 39 minutes when his minutes aren't getting limited. So the per 36 production that we're looking at here is probably slightly too small. If we just look at this season thus far with Terry Rozier off the court, again, small sample size, don't get me wrong, but 52 fantasy points per 36 with him off the court. And so I like that. And so we're seeing that if we want to stack this game, I think PJ Washington over points, LaMelo Ball over fantasy score, Tyus Jones over fantasy score. And I hate that this one's popping up for Kyle Kuzma as the under at 36. I think Kyle Kuzma should be able to feast in this game. He's the one player that I kind of trust, but we are seeing that maybe there is some correlation there where Daniel Gafford is expected to struggle and maybe Kyle Kuzma is expected to struggle. I don't see that happening. I think Gafford, I'm fine betting the under, but if Gafford struggles, I kind of expect Kyle Kuzma to have a good game as well. It is worth noting that he has probably been their most consistent player. I just don't know what we can expect for his minutes because we see this guy's like they've been blown out in so many games. And so I want to see what his projected minutes are. 31. I would want to see that number get a little bit higher because if we're betting on Kyle Kuzma, I feel like we're going to need to get a block out of him for him to get that over. So yeah, probably just staying away from that one. But then again, we got Gordon Hayward for over fantasy score. Again, he's someone that does get a bump. He's been averaging about 37.6 fantasy points per 36 with Rozier off the court. So again, someone we could be looking at. So we have some pretty good stacking opportunities. And I hate that this one is one where we're seeing the over being favorited. But Jordan Poole over 32.5 for his fantasy score. And Poole is kind of just a funny one because he has just been terrible thus far this season, but he should, like, eventually he's going to start playing better, right? And there's no better matchup than this one. And so maybe go Tyus Jones, maybe go Poole over, Gordon Hayward over fantasy score, and LaMelo Ball over fantasy score paired with PJ Washington over points. And then I do just want to touch on some other fantasy score props that to me, I feel like are worthwhile to mention. So again, Jakob Poeltl, I think he gets this over if we get news that Precious is going to sit. And I always say Precious because I always butcher his last name, by the way, guys. And then Portland, I do think we have a decent stacking opportunity just in this game alone. We have seen Sabonis kind of struggle and really the Kings struggle. You would expect him to have a good game against Portland. Sharp is definitely an interesting one at this line. It's annoying because I probably would want to bet the over here. He's going to get heavy minutes. All the Portland players have gotten heavy minutes, really, with their team being so banged up, and especially Brogdon and Sharp. 41 minutes, right? 46, 42. Like, he's getting heavy minutes, and he needs to get minutes with how banged up they are. all in all, I do think he has a good chance to get the over here, but the only way I'm getting there is if it's a game stack, okay? And then Keegan Murray, it's just like, wow, how do you keep struggling? It's like honestly crazy that Keegan Murray has been this bad, but really no one for the Kings has stepped up too much in the absence of De'Aaron Fox. That's why they've been struggling. He only played 28 minutes in that game, okay? Like, yes, that game was a blowout, and you expect him to get 36 or so minutes if this game stays close. He's eventually going to have a good game, and so it is at such a low number for him right now that I don't mind betting the over there. But Malcolm Brogdon, like, I'm just going to continue to ride the hot hand here. He is someone that I really question the Celtics coaching health staff, or Portland's for that matter, because someone's wrong here. Like, Portland basically got Malcolm Brogdon for free. And it is funny, I went back and looked at the ESPN top 100 players. He wasn't on there, which I kind of get, but I was like, where would they have ranked him? Because I get that Boston had some huge injury concerns, but like Portland's just running him out there. Like, that narrative was never there the last year and a half. He's played 39 and 44 minutes the last two games. Now, yes, that's out of necessity, but if a guy you were worried about getting re-injured was doing that, that's crazy. And guys, he hasn't even shot the basketball well the last two games, and I think that's partially due to Marcus Smart defense. He should be able to shoot the basketball better in this game, so I do like his over there as well. And then for what it's worth, it does feel like we're trying to guess to get lucky here in terms of like Malik Monk or Davion Mitchell. I don't mind DeAndre Ayton for over his fantasy score. We do know that Robert Williams has been ruled out in this game, and I think it's important to note that because with Robert Williams out, who, he didn't play too much in the two previous games, but 11 and 20 minutes against Memphis. And then we see with Aiden, he was getting those minutes kind of regardless, 35 and 36, but that should just mean that his minutes are locked in. Thus, he should be able to get the over fantasy score here as well. So I still think we are getting some good value for Portland. And so real quickly, guys, here, just pulling up some college basketball props that we currently have. We are seeing a lot of good lines there. There's not that many games going on right now or games that we have available for college basketball. So probably not much there. Let's take a peek at college football tonight. It is nice that we can always rely on college football to potentially have some for us. All right, so we're seeing that this one is going to be kind of a decent one for Harold for under receiving yards at 40.5. We can see the sports books are kind of favoring the under already. And so we can see for the most part, he's been someone that has consistently gotten the under. Now, I don't know much about college football, honestly, and I definitely don't know that much about Bowling Green football, but tight end getting under 40 under 40 for receiving yards, I'm fine including that one. We are seemingly getting an edge. I'm fine rolling with that. Let's see some other ones. JJ McCarthy for over 1.5 passing touchdowns. I know it's not tonight, but that is seemingly a good one. Then we're getting a lot of kind of good Michigan props, it would appear, kind of based off of that. So stacking opportunities there. I kind of want to focus on just today though. So let's take a peek at NHL, seeing if we're getting any good ones there. And then NHL wise, guys, I'm going to go ahead and use the slider just so we can see which are the good just pure EV bets that we are getting. Tim for over 2.5 shots on goal, not terrible. We are seeing 2 under assists at about a 54% likelihood to hit. I'm fine rolling with those. I do like this one, Trevor Moore for over 2.5 shots on goal. We can see the projection data has it set at 3, so not a terrible one. Again, we are getting a couple of good EV bets that we can toss in there. I'm fine with these. And then let's just go back through and just take a quick peek at underdog props that we might be getting. I know we're not getting any for college basketball just yet. Nothing too much. We are seeing Donovan Mitchell for over 4.5 rebounds is something you could be looking at. SGA for under 5.5 rebounds. Yusuf Nurk for over 8.5 rebounds. So we are getting a decent amount of good prop bets there on underdog for NBA. And then again, let's just take a peek at college football. And actually, guys, cancel that. We weren't getting that many good ones there. So I'm going to pull up the discrepancy report, seeing if we're getting any good ones there. And so right now, we kind of are now, again, with these kind of discrepancy ones, when the line is so low like this, we're going to see that that's kind of the reason as to why they're pulling in as a good, like, kind of projected edge, because when it's a low line like that, the difference is pretty great at such a low number. We are seeing a small difference in aces here. And typically speaking, when it's more than one for the difference, I kind of like betting both ways for that. But we're not getting too much for discrepancies. So I'm probably just going to be going in on the EV bets that we have here. But I do want to show you guys kind of the stack that I mentioned for Charlotte. And so this is kind of a way that you could stack that game, a game that should be appealing. Looking at the per 36 production, these 3 players should all get there, and Brandon Miller better not have a good game. And that's another one where I totally forgot we could bet the under for Brandon Miller fantasy score. We got Garland for under, we got Poole for over, and Tyus Jones for over. I might just want to get Brandon Miller in there instead. for under. All right, so now we go ahead and pivot into the bet of the day today. Brandon Miller under fantasy points. He should get there. I do worry that he is just due to have a good game thus far. Hasn't exactly been shooting the basketball well. And I don't like the fact that game is projected to be a very high scoring game. I showed you guys just now the Charlotte over fantasy score props that we could be betting on. I do like those bets as well, and they should correlate pretty well. And then we have Gafford for under his fantasy score. Guys, this has been at 21.5 really the whole season. It's spiking up because of this matchup, but at the same time, I don't think we can guarantee that he's going to get minutes. If he stays out of foul trouble, he should be able to get his over fantasy score, but it is very much dependent on the blocks. Like I showed you guys, he had 5 blocks in his last game. On average, he gets 2. And so if you take away those 9 points from those blocks, he doesn't even get the over last game. Now, he is kind of a point per minute producer, and so I do worry that in an easier matchup, he should be able to get there. But all in all, a decent one. PJ Washington is kind of the one non-EV bet that I tossed in here, just because I don't think they're accounting for his per 36 production this year with Terry Rozier off the court. Now, that being said, last year he did average 18.5 points with Terry Rozier off the court. Regardless of that, this is a good matchup, so I do expect him to be able to get that over. Don't be cold shooting the basketball. If you guys wanted to sub in the NHL prop for Trevor Moore for over 2.5 shots on goal, I'm fine with that. He's been very consistent to the point where he's either gotten 2 shots on goal or 3 shots on goal. So I kind of like looking for that. It's a very good consistent prop. We are seeing that this one is just overvalued given how college football sportsbooks are kind of saying it should be at like 38. The projection data said like 36. So probably the under there. And then these two for NHL, 2 prop bets that have a 54% chance of hitting. That's going to be all for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to give a like and subscribe if you did. Hit that notification bell as well so you don't miss out on any good EV bets throughout this video. That is going to be all, guys. If you guys want access to the 9to5sports.com tools, click the link in the description below. Available for just $10 a month. Thanks for watching, everyone. Let's have a good slate. And as always, let's keep cashing.